bei Duft den neuen Song aus dem Sägezahnzyklus und all diejenigen, die schon gegessen haben und ihre Meitlinge trinken, rumnuckeln, sollten endlich mal ihre Nase bewegen und auch die Tanzfläche bewegen. Und nun geht es los.
You are listening to Däs Bundesliga show here on the Lock Betting Podcast. You can follow the Lock Betting Podcast on Twitter at lockbetting.com. That's at lockbetting.com. You can also see the pinned tweet on that account. It is the P&L for the previous month at lockbetting.com, which delivered the 116th month in a row of transparent track profit. Also follow the TikTok. It has the same handle at lockbetting.com. It provides key betting information for you guys to make your bets. Therefore, it is a vital tool for you to follow if you like betting. It is 30 to 45 seconds of easy, digestible video giving you important betting information. The Instagram is at lockbetting. The Instagram is at lockbetting and not at lockbetting.com. So moving on with this edition of Däs Bundesliga show, we begin with the game between Borussia Mönchengladbach and Bayern Munich, where Borussia Mönchengladbach are the 6-1 underdogs here. It's 17-4 on the draw, and it's 1-3 here on Bayern Munich. There's no look-ahead spot here for Bayern Munich because last week was a look-ahead spot and they came through it. This would be the hangover spot after winning against Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League. So there's all these spots and specific issues you need to look at when pertaining to European schedules with the Europa League, Champions League, Europa Conference League all going on now as we hit this part of the season. I think Borussia Mönchengladbach could potentially get something from this game. No side has actually defeated Bayern Munich more than Gladbach. So this is a dark horse team. Whilst it is a long shot, the odds actually represent some significant value against Bayern with the hangover as well, and with Gladbach always finding a way to somehow get something against Bayern Munich. Gladbach have actually only lost one of their last 6 matches at home to Bayern Munich. So whereas this may be an automatic selection for most people on the coupon, I don't quite see it that way. I think my selection here for this one is a little bit conservative, but it also makes a lot of sense. I'm going to take Borussia Mönchengladbach plus 1.5 on the Asian handicap line. This is Gladbach to avoid a defeat of 2 goals or more. If they lose this game by a single goal, you win this bet. You don't push, you win the bet. And it's only if they lose by 2 goals or more that you end up losing this selection. So Gladbach plus 1.5 for me, and that one is available at the price of 10 to 11 minus 110 here in this one. If Gladbach gets something, you win this bet. So if they draw or win, but also if they lose by a single goal, you only are in losing territory if Bayern Munich win this by 2 goals or more here in this one. Up next, we jump across to the late game tonight where Eintracht Frankfurt are taking on Werder Bremen. So we skip past the rest of the 2:30 kickoffs, don't really have any significant leans there. Eintracht Frankfurt are the 4-7 favourites to win this game. It's 10-3 on the draw, and it's 9-2 in Werder Bremen. Frankfurt should win this game comfortably, but they are in that weird look-ahead spot where they have Champions League football to play. I think the easiest way to bet this game would be to take the goals. I think both teams to score may be the main selection here in this one. Eintracht Frankfurt actually won 6 of their last 8 Bundesliga home games. They should add to that tally against Werder Bremen, who have lost 3 of their last 5 matches. But despite that data, we do go with the goals here. These two sides actually hold the joint second league high return at 7 goals apiece of scoring in the opening 15 minutes. And both teams actually scored early before that in the reverse fixture. So I see an end-to-end counter because these two teams just go for it. And they go for it from the beginning of the game as well. Both teams' score landed in the reverse within 15 minutes. Both teams have found a net in 12 of the last 15 Bundesliga games between the two sides. And as I mentioned, Eintracht Frankfurt have actually won 6 of their last 8. So at home, that is. So Eintracht Frankfurt and BTTS could be something you could look at. I wish it wasn't a look-ahead spot with the Napoli up ahead, because that would be the play we'd go for. We still like it here. We still like taking a sprinkle on it, given the statistical data, because not all teams are guilty of hangovers or looking ahead. I would just be cautious, and I would lean towards the goals here. Both teams to score and over 2.5, as opposed to both teams to score and Frankfurt to win, does give you Frankfurt winning, but it also gives you the upset as well. There's obviously more juice in that selection. You don't have the 5-2 plus 250 anymore. You do just have a shade of plus money at 6-5 plus 120, but it could be a safer and more sensible way to go, given the look-ahead spot with such a big game for Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League against Napoli coming up in midweek. Up next, we move across to the Sunday games as we start with Union Berlin at home to Schalke. Union Berlin are the 4-7 favourites. It's 14-5 on the draw. It's 19-4 here on Schalke. This is quite a good price on Union Berlin, despite the fact it's 4-7 and it appears to be short. They just got themselves a incredible result away to Ajax on Thursday, a 0-0 draw, which they can build on in the home leg in the Europa League. They got an incredible result last weekend away to Leipzig, and they are just not dropping out of this title race. Every week we expect Union Berlin to drop off and no longer be challenging for the Bundesliga, because they are in a false position. They're in a false position in terms of data. They're in a false position in terms of the personnel that they have. But I take them now seriously for the title, because they're just not dropping off. If you win away to RB Leipzig, which is a difficult place to go to, you are genuine title contenders. They've now also won 7 Bundesliga games at home this season, and they beat Schalke 6-1 last time the two teams met in the Bundesliga. So at this point in time, how are you offering up 4-7 on Union Berlin? In fact, 8-13, best price in some places. If this was Borussia Dortmund at home to Schalke, they would be around about 1-5, 1-6. If this was Bayern Munich, they'd be 1-10. So I do think the line is slightly disrespectful. Union Berlin are genuine title contenders, and I think this will be a game that has goals in it as well. There have been over 2.5 goals in 9 of Union Berlin's last 10 Bundesliga matches. They'll definitely be scoring a vast majority of them and coming away with the win. Schalke are yet to win any away league game in the Bundesliga this season. So generous price here, best price of 8-13 available if you shop about. Union Berlin definitely the choice here for me in this one. Up next, we've got a game between Borussia Dortmund and Hertha Berlin. Borussia Dortmund are flying high, another win in midweek against Chelsea, so they've continue on with their 100% streak since we returned from the World Cup. They're the 1-3 favourites to win again. It's 19-4 on the draw, and it's 9-1 here on Hertha Berlin. Can't really get in Dortmund's way at the moment. They are genuine title contenders. I can't see anything other than a comfortable Dortmund win here. Dortmund now have a league high 5 clean sheets at home this season and have won every game, as I mentioned, since the Bundesliga restart. Hertha Berlin themselves, they've lost to nil in 3 of the last 5 visits to Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund to win to nil isn't really a sentence that you hear too often from my mouth, but slowly they have been building up the data that makes this the go-to play. But you're always going to get big money on a Dortmund clean sheet. Dortmund to win this game to nil is available at 6-4 plus 150. And that's for a reason, because Dortmund can be defensively unreliable. They can get caught at the back, as we saw earlier on in the season against Augsburg, who put 3 past them. Dortmund under 4.5 goals, I think, would be a safer way to go. Obviously, it's a more juice selection, but it may be the far more sensible selection at the price of 4-5 minus 125. And even with Dortmund, that's not safe, because on any given day, they can score 4 or 5 goals past an opponent and make this play a sweaty one to cash. Final game we look at here is Bayer Leverkusen at home to Mons, where Leverkusen are the 10-11 favourites. It's 13-5 on the draw, and it's 3-1 on Mons. The inconsistency of Leverkusen continues to be one of the most frustrating points of the season. You just can't determine from week to week what version of this team are going to show up. On paper, they should comfortably win this game, and this should be an incredible price. Both sides' last Bundesliga games featured 4 goals or more, and Mons won the last Bundesliga game with 4 goals or more landing as well. So we could be seeing plenty of goals here in this one. But again, I feel like, as we mentioned earlier with the Union Berlin-Schalke game, Leverkusen should be scoring a majority of them. Bayer Leverkusen have recorded 8 victories in the last 10 Bundesliga heads-to-heads. And if you want to tack on goals here to give yourself a bit more value, there have been 4 goals on 9 of Leverkusen's 20 Bundesliga matches this season, and over 2.5 goals has been a winning bet in Mons' last 4 Bundesliga games. So an exciting game here, but ultimately I think this could be the time to take Leverkusen, because they seem to have got themselves back on track again, because they seem to get themselves off track and back on track constantly this season, but you just never know. This should really be the lock on this show, but it's not a risk that I want to take this weekend for one unit. Instead, we go for Union Berlin here on the money line at the best price of 8-13. Not usually a price that we take. We don't really take locks this short, but sometimes if it makes sense, it's okay to do it and to bank that easy money. Union Berlin, for me, should be way shorter than this. They should be closer to minus 250, minus 300 at worst. Nowhere near this price of 8-13, very, very close to 4-6, minus 150. So we'll take it here. We'll take Union Berlin to continue winning. As I said, many people have been against them, said they've been in a false position, just waiting for them to falter. They haven't, and we'll ride them here against the worst away side in the Bundesliga as the lock for this weekend. That's it for me. Good luck with all your bets as always, and thanks for listening.